Good, bad, and the ugly. Week 1 of the NFL, we saw a little bit of everything, but a win's a win, and the Bills are 1-0 on the season, topping the Arizona Cardinals 34-28. Kevin Carroll with you as always, and
I am Andy Young from Highmark Stadium. The pregnant pause there after a big win for the Buffalo Bills on opening day. It certainly wasn't the start they wanted to see, but it was the finish. So the Bills 1-0 and off to the races.
Oh, I like that phrase, Andy. And that's all that matters at the end of the day is you get that W. Bills, of course, started with a loss last year. So this refreshing, Andy, and as you and I talked about going into the game, really needed a Bills win to start the season because the schedule gets dicey after that. And, man, I thought this was a lost cause right off the bat. We had, like you said after the game, a tale of two halves. The Bills couldn't get out of their own way, could not stop the Cardinals. Josh Allen with a big turnover early in the game that led to points. It was just a mess. But then things kind of calmed down. You know, I was questioning Bobby Babich calling plays at the during the first half of the game, but I really like the fact that his defense made adjustments and that the defense came up big when they needed to in this one. But, Andy, it always goes around Josh Allen. And anyone questioning the Bills, anyone calling Josh Allen overrated going into this season, watch what the guy does on a regular basis in an NFL game. Puts his heart and his hand, Andy, on the line in this one. 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns.
Yeah, it was kind of, like you said, a tale of two halves. And for Josh Allen, outside of the strip sack fumble where he gave up the ball early on the Bills' first drive, the Bills actually were doing okay on offense. They just didn't have the ball in the first half. So beyond just the offense and Josh Allen, the key to me was the defense settling down, like you mentioned, stopping Kyler Murray, stopping the misdirection plays, slowing James Conner down a little bit. That was really the key because at one point, the Cardinals had converted 5 of 7 first downs, and the Bills' defense just could not get off the field. And, you know, some of us media members were joking in the press box, all right, are we going to see Sean McDermott calling plays maybe as soon as the second half after the way the Bills defense started? Once the Bills defense settled down, then that gave the offense a little breathing room to get their sea legs and get moving because the time of possession was just ridiculous in favor of the Cardinals to start this game. And Bills fans were thinking, oh my God, are we going to get steamrolled here? They fall down 14-3 or 17-3. And then they start to pick things up. And at that point, the offense gets moving, and Josh Allen does what Josh Allen does. He finds Keon Coleman. He finds Hollins. He finds Khalil Shakir. And then at the end of the first half, and then they do a double dip. They score there, score to start the second half, and then they're on their way to taking the lead in this game. So it really was about the defense settling down to me and making those adjustments at halftime that allowed the offense to just be on the field for Allen to do what he does.
And you had to have some guys, Andy, come off the bench on that defensive side of the ball. Taron Johnson leaves the game early in this one, and it's basically up to a couple of former UB guys to come in and fill some roles there. You almost had another Hail Murray at the end of this one, but a nice pass breakup at the end there so the Bills get the ball back and can kneel it out the rest of the way. But guys stepping up on defense coming off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, you're already down Matt Milano, who's an all-pro player, and then you're down Taron Johnson almost as soon as the game gets started. He goes out with a forearm injury, and we'll see from head coach Sean McDermott over the next couple of days what he can glean from the x-rays and those sorts of things to see what's up with Taron Johnson and if there's going to be any long-term prognosis for him to be out. So you lose a guy who, as the nickel cornerback, is really one of the key pieces and a veteran leader of that defensive secondary. The guy basically plays linebacker at like 210 pounds or less. You know what I'm saying? 200 pounds at best. And he's just a force out there. So to lose him was tough. But then Cam Lewis comes in, and he's Mr. Reliable, a guy who's worked his way up. 6th year in the NFL now with the Bills, been on the practice squad, bounced around, coming out of UB. But he's a guy that they trust and rely upon both as a backup safety, as the backup nickel corner, can play dime. He's a guy who came out there and did really well. And then Jamarcus Ingram, another former UB Bull, also came in situations in the nickel and the dime and was able to make an impact in this game. So that was key for this team, especially the way it started defensively. Those guys settling in and doing the job really was helpful for the Bills as this game went along.
Yeah, you have edge rushers Von Miller, Andy, looking like a Von Miller better than last year's Von Miller we saw at times. So it was good to see, if you're keeping an eye on what you're going to get out of Von Miller, that he played a role in this one as far as the defense keeping the Bills in the game.
Yeah, I noted right away on one of Kyler Murray's longer escapes for a first down early in the game, Von Miller really was putting pressure on him. And Murray's one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's able to escape. He does that to a lot of guys. And right from the start, I saw Miller with a little more spark, a little more juice getting around the edge. And then, he's credited with a sack in the later stages of the game when he's putting on pressure. He pushes the offensive lineman back towards Murray, and Murray kind of trips up over his guy trying to escape that. Miller gets credit for a sack, which was his first since before Thanksgiving 2022. So it had been like almost 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years since Von Miller, one of the greatest sack artists we've ever seen in the history of the NFL, recorded a sack. And that's got to boost his confidence that he was able to go out there and play. And oh, by the by, him having some impact on the game also opens things up for the other guy across from him, Greg Rousseau. Just an absolute monster game in this one.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, you look at Miller being effective helps the younger Gregory Rousseau, who we seen during camp, that it looked like he took a step forward, seemed in practices leading up that he took another step forward, comes up with that big strip sack of Kyler Murray that really helped the game take that different look and the momentum shift as it starts to go over towards the Buffalo Bills.
I mean, Greg Rousseau, my goodness, if he plays at this level, the Bills are going to have to pay him something hefty as he goes into a fifth year next year, because my goodness, what a game for him. He took what he did in the preseason when we saw him have 2.5 sacks, I think, in 3 series against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he comes in today and rips up 3 sacks and has a forced fumble, strip sack, as you said, and just an incredible force, played well against the run as well. And they've been needing that for so long. That's why they went out and got a guy like Von Miller 2-3 years ago in free agency, because they didn't have that edge rusher closer guy. If Greg Rousseau can step up and be that elite pass rusher, set the edge both in the run game and wreak havoc in the passing game for opposing offenses, I mean, that's exactly what the Bills have desperately needed for so long, because in the early stages of this game, Kyler Murray had no real pass rush against him. A couple times I mentioned Von Miller getting a little pressure on him, but when they finally started to get to him, that was critical in this game, and it really turned the game around.
Yeah, Kyler Murray and James Conner, Andy. I don't think I've ever seen someone get the ball so much to start a football game, but he was effective running against the Bills and in the passing game against the Bills. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it looked like they were just going to feed James Conner the whole game. And they did a lot for the most part. They changed it up every now and then. But it was dicey off the start. It just looked like the Cardinals were going to be able to do whatever they wanted, and you could only hope for a mistake and the Bills get back in it, and then it play out the way it did. But off the top of this game, the Bills' run defense looked really bad.
Yeah, it was tough, but they were able to rebound and made those second half adjustments. I'm looking down at the stats here. Conner ends up with 16 carries for 50 yards, which is 3.1 yards per carry. That's not too shabby. Kyler Murray, on the other hand, 5 carries for 57 yards. That's 11.4 yards per carry. So that's really a difficult thing to manage when you're, trying to slow down James Conner, who got off to a nice start, and they were able to slow him down, but then trying to contain Kyler Murray, which coming into this game was a real key to me, because I think I mentioned it in the podcast. It was going to be the Bills' running defense against the Cardinals, who love to pound James Conner, have drafted Trey Benson, and of course you have to account for Kyler Murray's legs, and that got the best of them early on. Eventually, you saw Dorian Williams go into spy mode, which I think helped a little bit. And I think they were able to kind of settle down into the way they were playing and keep Murray a little more contained. And then James Conner, of course, they were able to slow down as well.
I will say there was one play with Dorian where, yeah, he was playing the spy, but he could not keep up with Kyler Murray.
No.
So I think it's a good idea, but if Dorian can't keep up with Kyler and Murray gets to the outside, there were a couple of plays where it was like, I get the idea, but it just seemed kind of pointless at that point.
Yeah, and, Dorian Williams had his ups and downs in this game. It's not too dissimilar from when he got playing time last season when Matt Milano went down. And he mentioned it. I asked him in the locker room after the game, hey, how did you feel you played? Immediate reaction. He hasn't looked at the tape. And he said, yeah, there were some plays I wish I had back, a couple of missed tackles, but overall I thought I did okay. Containing Kyler Murray is not easy for anybody to do. So that was interesting. One thing I did notice about the Bills defense was they were just getting dinked and dunked to death at one point.
Yeah.
There was hardly anything down the field for the Cardinals, and they didn't need to. It was short stuff. It was plays in the flat. It was little plays over the middle. So they didn't really give up any big plays as far as deep down the field. Any of the big plays were either the screen pass or a broken play where Murray scrambled for a big play. So I think they did a pretty good job limiting like those downfield big plays, but the Cardinals didn't really press the issue either, which was a little surprising because Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't really do anything in this game.
One catch, Andy, I was going to say the showdown of rookie wide receivers, tip of the cap to Keon Coleman, 4 receptions for 51 yards. Harrison Jr., 1 catch the entire game for 4 yards, and I don't even think he was targeted by the Cardinals that much. And then on the flip side, you take the Bills, and Keon Coleman actually led the wide receivers there. Everybody eat. Keon Coleman ate the most.
Yeah, 5 targets for Keon Coleman. That led the way, but this isn't the volume passing attack like we've seen from the Bills where they're, giving Stephon Diggs 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 targets. Stephon Diggs also, by the by, had a great game down in Houston. But
a Bills loss, and that would have stung a little more, Andy.
Right, exactly. But I thought Coleman did okay. I was a little surprised he was the leader in targets. It's kind of the way the game went. I think they wanted to get the passing game a little going more than they did in the first half. They just, again, didn't have the ball, which was problematic. And, the running game was going pretty good at first with James Cook. So they're kind of riding that a little bit. But I thought Coleman did a nice job, especially on that catch deep down the sideline where he had no separation there, which is kind of been the knock on Keon Coleman. But he's able to use his physicality and ability and agility to turn around and make that catch. So I thought he acquitted himself pretty well for his first game. I think he's going to learn more and more about how defenses are going to play him. He's never going to be like a speed burner, Stephon Diggs, some of these great route runners, shake guys free. He's going to have to play through agility and physicality and that tenacity to go up and get the football. That's going to be the way he wins.
You like seeing a young man coming out of college too, Andy, on that play to make sure he had 2 feet inbounds.
Yeah, you're right.
Because that was my concern when the play happened. At the moment, I'm like, did he get 2 feet in bounds? And it was just impressive from catching the ball to the footwork. And then that led to that Josh Allen touchdown. So, I mean, we were all expecting big things from Marvin Harrison Jr. Didn't get it. First game of the season. Cardinals run the ball more anyways, Andy. So not a huge shock there.
Yeah, I think they did a nice job between Christian Benford and Rousseau Douglas and whoever else happened to be guarding Marvin Harrison Jr. at any point. Not sure. I haven't obviously looked at the film if they were bracketing him or doing any sort of special coverage with double teams or anything like that. You have to remember, too, the Cardinals have a fabulous young tight end and Trey McBride, who was able to make some plays in this game. So, but, Bills do a decent job typically of limiting, especially like rookies like that.
Let's get back to the Bills side. I kind of drifted back towards talking about the Cardinals with Marvin Harrison Jr., but Khalil Shakir, Andy, just
my guy
doesn't stop impressing. Like you go back to that wild catch and not getting tackled in the playoffs last year. Guy comes out in week 1 of the regular season and basically does the same exact thing a couple of times, really, the run after the catch. And we had talked about him maybe being more of a leader role because he is the guy who's been on the team the longest out there. But as far as someone who's off to what looks like could be a monster season for him, he came through big time as well. But it's interesting, Andy, because of how well Allen distributed the football. Again, Shakir with just 3 catches, one of them for a touchdown.
Yeah, everybody ate just a little bit in this game.
I was gonna text you during the first half. Seems like nobody's eating so far in this game because it was because of the defense was on the field all the time. But yeah, it was appetizers.
It was a snack.
Yeah,
it was a snack. It wasn't a Thanksgiving feast, and they didn't need that in this game.
Yeah.
Khalil Shakir, after he had that first catch where he bounced off a guy and had a big gain, I put up on X a GIF of a pinball machine because that's what he reminds me of.
Yeah.
He bounces off guys and ends up 10, 15 yards down the field after that. And then he does it again on his touchdown. And we talked so much about Allen's trust in him and his reliability. And we talked last season about how his catch percentage was near 87%, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
And in this game, 3 targets, 3 catches. It wasn't a high volume thing, but he made a couple of big plays when they needed them. And that's what you're going to have out of this offense, I think, for a lot of it, because different guys are going to be involved in different ways. And then, of course, Allen does things with his legs, too. So that's going to be a critical aspect. So Shakir, I mean, I said it. I've said it all summer. I think he's going to have a monster season, whether that's, massive, massive numbers. I don't know. I said he could push for 1,000 yards, but, 42 yards is nothing great. But big plays when they're needed is what he provides often.
Are you shocked at all with the limited amount of catches some of the players got? I mean, Dalton Kincaid stands out to me. I think it was in the 4th quarter he finally caught a ball. Mac Hollins with 2 catches. Valdez-Scantling and Curtis Samuel. Or do you think, Andy, like we were told leading up to the game, each game is going to be different? Each one of these guys has a certain set of tools that can be used, and they're just going to go each week with whoever the hot wide receiver is who's going to get the ball the most while still trying to work everyone else in.
Yeah, for sure. I think the way the game script went in the first half sort of limited guys' numbers, but to that point, I mean, Josh Allen completed passes to 9 different receivers and threw to 10. So, I mean, that's really spreading the ball around, right? And he did take the deep shot to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. We only really saw one of those. Curtis Samuel, not really heavily involved. Kincaid, not heavily involved at all. Sean McDermott made a point in his post-game press conference to say, we would have liked to have seen Kincaid a little bit more involved. And I think he will be. Could have been the Cardinals were playing for that, hey, we think this guy is going to be their Travis Kelce. We're going to try and take him away. So they got to figure out a way around that, because I think that's going to be a huge linchpin for the Bills offense this season. But it's going to be that way. Like, Keon Coleman had 4 catches, Shakir 3, Cook 3, Hollins 2, 1 for Knox, 1 for Scantling, 2 for Samuel, 1 for Ray Davis, 1 for Kincaid. I mean, it is what it is. Like, Josh didn't put up 400 yards in this game, so, the guy's numbers are going to be a little less.
You mentioned James Cook. Impressed with how he looked at times in this game. Looked a little bit tougher to me, Andy. Looked a little bit more like a running back who can take a hit here or there and still gain extra yards. And it appears that as far as his involvement in the offense, that the Bills are fine with it basically being him, and then Josh Allen making passes off of the fact that they can just push Cook down the field. And Ray Davis looked really good, too, in the limited action we saw of him.
Yeah, I mean, James Cook, over 100 total yards. He had 71 yards rushing. He had another let's see here, 32 yards receiving. So, I mean, that's a good day for Cook. He didn't get in the end zone, but I mean, that's a guy who you're gonna rely upon as a bell cow. Yeah, Ray Davis is there, and yeah, Ty Johnson was there, and it was interesting too. Ty Johnson got a little more play early on because of the way the game was going, I think, and I think they trust him a little bit more in pass protection than the other two guys. But yeah, they're going to mix it up a little bit. Ray Davis had a nice little game there when he got his chances. I think he's going to come on more and more. You got to remember he's a rookie. Bills are slow moving with rookies and like to get those guys acclimated as best as possible before they put a heavy workload on them. James Cook's going to get the ball a lot for this team this season, and I thought he played, for the most part, pretty darn well. Showed that shiftiness and elusiveness. Offensive line had it cooking at times. I mean, the average isn't great, but overall, I think it was pretty effective.
Josh Allen, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Josh Allen, everyone's become a big fan of, Andy, but no one wanted to see him with a hand injury towards the end of the game. They wrapped it up. It was his left hand, not his throwing hand. But the Bills, Andy, have a short work week, and I know we're going to find out more as the week goes along. And I asked you this during the post-game show, if it's maybe time to kind of rein Josh in a little bit during his post-game press conference. You could kind of see that when he was talking about that touchdown that he dove in late, that even he himself was like, maybe I could have done something else than leap up in the air like that. But again, that's the Josh Allen you expect. That's the Josh Allen that wins you games. But, man, with the game against the Dolphins coming up on Thursday, that was not a sight I think anyone wanted to see when the way they had his hand wrapped up as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly problematic. It's certainly concerning, especially on a short week. Anytime, really, though, when something happens to Josh Allen like that. For anybody that says this guy is overrated, what would that team have been like without him?
Right.
I mean, he puts him on his back, man. Like, there were other contributors, no doubt about it, but some of the plays that he made, yes, he had the fumble, and he needs better pocket awareness. He needs to know when to get rid of that ball much sooner. But look at the way he played after that. I mean, he was great and throughout most of this game. But you got to have him healthy. So that's a case where he's making a play. I don't know what else he might do there. I guess slide down before the end zone. But, 9 times out of 10, he's trying to make that play. If he's hurt in any way where he can't play, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Mitch Trubisky. He's coming off an injury himself and didn't look great in the preseason. So, I mean, this is going to really bear watching throughout the rest of this week.
It makes me wonder. Yeah, it makes me wonder as we record this after the game, if you're checking on this later on, there might be more info about Josh Allen. But with the short week, I think if it wasn't against the Miami Dolphins, you might err towards give Josh some extra rest because we play Thursday, then we don't play again until Monday Night Football. Maybe the hand gets into better shape by then, but I don't know. With it being the Dolphins and the fact that New England and Miami both won, and the Bills, so everyone's 1-1. Jets play on Monday Night Football. Is it something more? It looked like Josh was able to take a snap from under center. He even ran the ball once after injuring his hand. And again, it's not his throwing hand. Makes you wonder if this game against the Dolphins, it's huge. It's only week 2, but it's huge. That it's something where you might look at the flip side of it and say, let Josh play Thursday, then he can get that extra rest before Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, if he's able to take snaps and do those sorts of things and there's not further risk to damage, you got to lean towards Josh playing. If he's really hurt, needs surgery or something like that, that changes everything, right? That changes the entire trajectory of this season. But with it being a divisional game, you don't have a whole lot of faith in your backup quarterbacks, I don't think, at least to my mind. I don't know. I can't speak for Sean McDermott and company, but I wouldn't. You play Josh if he's able to take the snaps and he's not at risk of some sort of major damage. you got to get him out there. You wrap it up, you tape it up. He can take the snaps, or you go from shotgun. It is what it is. If there's major risk that this is going to be something that lingers and it's going to cause a lot of effects to the way he plays, then you got to think about that and take that into account.
Man, that would be a tough start. If something,
right.
But Josh, and again, we've seen this before with injuries with him, where after the game he's like, whatever. And then, as the week goes on, it might be worse than what we were led to believe. But that's the thing to follow throughout the week, or this short week, is him, Taron Johnson with his injury. That's tough to lose one of your best guys on either side of the ball in week one for an expanded period of time, if that ends up being the case.
Yeah, I mean, this team is tested with adversity right out the gate, both in terms of injuries and things away from the field and what happened in the game itself. So, obviously, you come through this and you're happy to have a win. Didn't go as smoothly as you wanted it to. Now you're dealing with Milano's out, Taron Johnson's out, Allen's banged up. We'll see how this week goes. I mean, it's going to be a quick week. We're going to be back out here on Monday and Tuesday, and then, they're flying off to Miami on Wednesday, game Thursday night. So, I mean, hopefully the trainers and all those people can get Allen, and we'll see what's up with Taron, get those guys up to speed if they're able.
What'd you think of the kick return, Andy? I mean, the Bills with a very nice kick return early in the game, and then the Cardinals won up that and returned one to the house, and maybe lesson learned for the Bills special team that maybe just kick it into the end zone and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. They go down and they build that lead, and then they give up a 96-yard kickoff return right away to get the Cardinals right back into the game. And to my mind, you're at that point, why risk it? Like, if you're doing it earlier in the game and you want to try to see if you can pin them deep or have a guy fumble, which a guy for the Cardinals did bobble one of the kickoffs earlier in the game on one of those line drives from Tyler Bass, and that helped the Bills. But once you take the lead and you're up 11 or whatever it was at that point, why not kick it out and evade the risk? And I think that's something they're going to learn. This is all brand new for these teams, trying to figure out when to risk it, when to kick it deep, when to pooch it, whatever it is, however they want to handle it. And you also saw the one where Bass kicked it out of bounds. That hurt too. So to me, just when in doubt, boot it out of the end zone. You live to see another play, right?
Was the wind that bad at the stadium? It looked on TV, kicking away from the tunnel side was a bit of an issue with kickoffs.
Yeah, it was windy out there, no doubt about it. The wind was swirling. It was strong at times. You saw the flags on top of the goalposts moving all sorts of directions. You saw the flags that are of the other teams throughout the NFL on top of the stadium, kind of whipping in different directions. So I'm sure that was not easy today for either kicker to really figure out exactly what they were doing. Bass obviously comes through and makes his field goal, so that was clutch too.
Yeah. What about the refereeing, the officiating in this one, Andy? Always seems to be an issue, always maddening as fans. And you have the call when Kyler Murray slid and wasn't hit, and then Josh Allen slid later, but they said Dalton Kincaid blocked the guy into Josh Allen. It's always the same. It doesn't matter what team you root for. You always think the refs are rooting against you. But it was pretty
sloppy.
Take two. It was pretty lopsided. I can't say it.
Lopsided.
As far as penalties go early in this game, which it's week one of the season. But again, like every NFL fan, it just gets obnoxious after a while.
Yeah, Bills did have some self-inflicted wounds in the penalty department. They've got to clean up the pre-snap stuff, all those sorts of things. But you're right. I thought those two different calls on the roughing the passer didn't work for me, right?
Right.
Murray doesn't really even get hit on his play. The guy trying to make the tackle really avoids it. I think his arm might have tapped him on the way down. And then Allen gets blown up, but he doesn't get the call. Right. So,
and by the way, I won't make excuses for any player on the Bills, But I know Josh Allen got a lot of heat last year for faking like he was going to slide, and I think the Steelers gave up on the play, and then he ran for a touchdown. Kyler Murray did that later on in the game on a long run where you could tell Russell Douglas was like, I'm not going in for the hit because he's going down. And then Kyler Murray kept running, I think picked up like another 25 yards or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's inconsistent. The refs in the NFL, not the greatest thing ever. Every week there's some call in some game that you're just like, this is just ridiculous. And another case of that today. But it's the refs. It is what it is. We'll talk about it and argue about it. Bills fans won't get too heated because they won the game, but if they lost, you're having a hardcore conversation about it.
Overall take from the game for me, Andy, was week one of the season, still some rust to shake off as far as, when you're getting out there. The Josh Allen hand thing is a concern to me moving forward, but they got that first win. Now you go down to Miami. Then you have Jacksonville, who's given you trouble in recent years coming up. But getting that win puts you in a better frame of mind. And I think it's good to get this first short week out of the way in week 2 of the season, because then you're done with it. And then you can plan out the season the rest of the way how you want. So overall, I mean, I think the Bills corrected early mistakes. They came on strong defensively and offensively as the game went along. And, we're tested. Even on the last play for the Cardinals, some of those guys still have the Hail Murray stuck in their head, but you have Ingram come up with a great play at like the 1-yard line. And it's a nice way to finish it with a backup player coming up clutch with what could have been and what I was expecting to be disaster in a Cardinals touchdown towards the end there.
Yeah, a lot of the guys were asked in the locker room if a game like this where they faced that early adversity and proved that they could come back and prove they could rebound and prove they could make halftime adjustments in the case of the defense, if that could be uplifting for this team. And I think some of the guys said, you know what, it can. You don't want to start slow. You don't want to struggle, but you're going to have adversity throughout a season. So to have guys step up, coming off the bench, to have Josh Allen do his sort of thing, and to have the defensive adjustments and all those sorts of things, that's a promising sign. Yeah, you'd love them to go out and blow the doors off. Didn't happen. Game was tight down the stretch, but that's the NFL. You don't win every game by 30 points. Bills over the last several years, when they win, typically win big. So they don't play a ton of close games unless they lose, right? They don't usually get blown out. So it's different territory. Most games are decided by a touchdown or less. That's what we had here today.
All right, short week with the Bills playing at Miami on Thursday. Andy already talked about Bills back to practice Monday, Tuesday, and then head out on Wednesday. So we'll come back your way with a podcast to look ahead towards the Dolphins game midweek this week. Anything else to add, Andy?
No, just a perfect day in Orchard Park, New York. It's crispy this morning. I got here around 9 o'clock in the morning, and you get out and you instantly smell the griddles and you smell the grills, and there's chili cooking and burgers and hot dogs. And it was just a perfect afternoon for football in Western New York. And I think, this week it's going to get hot again, but this was just a quintessential fall 1 o'clock Sunday game in Western New York. I think of beauty. Love that stuff, man.
You love the smell in the air in the fall, Andy. That first time you're like, here we go. It's game day for football. All right. Bills with the 34-28 win, up or down at the Miami Dolphins coming up on Thursday. As always, everyone, thanks for joining us.